Don't touch him, ma'am.
The gas station clerk's voice cracked through the cold night air.
That man's trouble, Hell's Angel type. You help him, you'll regret it.
But Evelyn Carter, a 70-year-old retired school teacher, stood frozen beneath the flickering streetlight, clutching a small paper bag of groceries, milk, bread, apples. Her week's meals. Her late husband's pension barely covered rent, and these few dollars were all she had left. On the pavement just a few feet away, a biker lay gasping beside his motorcycle, his chest heaving, his skin turning gray. His fingers twitched, reaching toward her, then fell limp. Evelyn heard the clerk again.
Walk away, lady. He's one of them.
But all she saw was a man dying. The bag slipped from her hands, apples rolling across the asphalt. And right there, in the dim light of an empty gas station, Evelyn made a decision that would shake her entire neighborhood before the sun came up. She ran inside, used her last $10 to buy aspirin and water, and ran back out into the night. That choice, a widow traded her last grocery money for a stranger's life, wasn't just an act of kindness. It was a spark. And by dawn, that spark would ignite a storm unlike anything her quiet street had ever seen. The quiet street where she lived for 30 years would shake under the rumble of 100 engines. Dozens of them. They didn't come for revenge. They came to repay a debt. But before those motorcycles lined her block, before the headlines, the tears, and the crowd that would soon gather, Evelyn Carter was just another forgotten woman with an empty fridge and a heavy heart. She didn't know that saving one life would bring the whole world to her doorstep, or that kindness, once sown, can thunder back in ways that shake the ground itself. This is the story of Evelyn Carter, a woman the world stopped seeing until she chose to see someone else. A story about kindness that costs everything, and how, somehow, the world found a way to pay her back. And before we begin, I would like to know, have you ever helped a stranger, not because you had enough but because of humanity? How did you feel after that? Kindly share your experience with us in the comments section. We will love to know how it played out. Because by the time this story ends, you might look at kindness a little differently. Now, let's go back to the night it all began. To that moment the retired teacher reached into her purse, and destiny reached back. Rain had stopped but the pavement still glistened, reflecting the buzzing lights of the rundown gas station. The clock above the counter blinked at 10:57 p.m. Evelyn Carter stood at pump 3, her coat pulled tight, breath forming small clouds in the cold. The grocery bag on her arm was light, too light. She'd skipped butter again, and the cashier had looked at her with that quiet pity she hated. Then she heard it, a deep cough, followed by the heavy thud of metal hitting concrete. Her head jerked up. A man was on his knees near the air pump, a large frame folded inward, leather vest stretched tight across tattooed shoulders. His motorcycle lay on its side, chrome flashing in the flicker of the light.
Don't go near him.
The clerk yelled from the doorway, cigarette dangling from his mouth.
That's Ryder Graves. Everyone in this town knows that name. Hell's Angels, drugs, prison. You want none of that, ma'am.
Evelyn didn't answer. She was already moving. The biker's lips had gone pale. His hand clutched his chest as if he could squeeze the pain away. His eyes rolled back, catching the light just long enough for her to see the fear inside them, raw and human. "Sir," she said, kneeling beside him. "Can you hear me?" He tried to speak, only a rasp escaped. Her hands shook as she searched his jacket but found nothing but old patches, a chain, and grease. Behind her, tires screeched. A pickup truck slowed, then sped off again. Everyone saw. No one stopped. She pulled her phone from her purse, one bar of signal. Dialed 911. The call dropped. "Please," she whispered, pressing redial. Dead again. The clerk stepped closer but didn't cross the puddle line.
He ain't worth it. They find you here, his people. They'll think you did it.
Evelyn looked up sharply. He's somebody's son. The clerk froze, cigarette glowing between his fingers. She sprinted inside, the door chimes screeching as she grabbed the nearest bottle of aspirin and cold water. "Please, he's having a heart attack." The young attendant hesitated. $6.50. Evelyn reached into her coat pocket. $10. folded soft from being handled too often. Her grocery money for the week. She placed it on the counter with trembling fingers. "Keep the change," she said, already running back out. The biker's breathing was shallow, almost gone. Kneeling, she lifted his head into her lap, broke the seal on the bottle, and pressed 2 pills to his lips. "Chew," she said softly. "You have to chew." He obeyed weakly, eyes locked on hers, as if trusting this small woman with his last moments. She tilted the water bottle. He swallowed. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then, faintly, his chest rose again. Sirens wailed in the distance. Evelyn didn't realize she was crying until her vision blurred. "Stay with me, all right? My name's Evelyn. You're going to be fine." He tried to speak. "Why? Helping me?" "Because no one else will," she said. The sirens grew louder. 2 paramedics rushed over. "Did you give him anything?" one asked. "Aspirin. 2 tablets. 3 minutes ago." The medic nodded. "Smart move. Might have saved his life." Evelyn exhaled shakily, stepping back as they worked. The other medic looked up. "You family?" "No," she hesitated. "Just someone who was here." As they loaded the biker onto the stretcher, his hand reached out, grease-stained, shaking. He caught her wrist. "Name," he croaked. "Evelyn Carter." "Remember this," he whispered. "You didn't just save me." She frowned, but before she could ask, he was gone, doors slamming, the ambulance pulling into the night. The clerk came out, arms crossed. "You're crazy, lady. You'll see. Those types don't forget, and not in a good way." She didn't answer. The adrenaline drained from her body, leaving her knees weak. She bent to pick up the groceries, the bread now soggy, apples bruised. The lights buzzed overhead like angry bees. As she started walking home, she replayed the image of his face, the terror in his eyes, the weight of his hand gripping hers. She didn't even know if he would survive the night. Halfway down the block, her phone buzzed. A known number. She ignored it. Another buzz. Text this time. "This is Cole. Ryder Graves is alive because of you. He wants to thank you. Please call tomorrow." Evelyn stopped under a street lamp. The rain had begun again, light but steady. She read the message twice, her pulse still racing. Ryder Graves. The name the clerk had shouted. She'd heard it before, on news segments about biker raids, violence, and arrests. The kind of name polite society used as a warning. And now that man knew hers. She slipped the phone back into her pocket, clutching the grocery bag tight against her chest. Her shoes squelched in the puddles. Her apartment windows glowed faintly down the street, a single square of light in the dark. Inside, the air was cool and still. She set the groceries on the table and looked at the $10 bill missing from her wallet. Then at the small photo of her late husband, Leonard, in his classroom uniform, chalk dust on his sleeve. "You'd have done the same, wouldn't you?" she murmured. Lightning flashed outside. For a moment, she thought she heard the faint echo of an engine somewhere far away, like a ghost on the wind. She closed the curtains. But sleep didn't come easily. Every creak of the old building made her sit up. Every shadow outside her window made her wonder if she'd just changed more than one life that night, if she'd invited danger to her doorstep. At 3 a.m., she rose and wrote in the small notebook she kept by the bed, the one labeled gratitude. The man lived. I had $10 to give. Tomorrow might be kinder. She set down the pen, unaware that across town, in a sterile hospital room, Ryder Graves was awake and whispering her name to a room full of men in leather vests. Men who would soon roll through the sleeping city before the sun had fully risen. Outside Evelyn's window, a single headlight blinked once in the rain, then disappeared down the empty street. Tomorrow the engines will come. It began as a vibration through the floorboards. A low, steady tremor that woke Evelyn before the light did. She sat up, heart pounding. The clock read 6:42 a.m. A thin gray dawn leaked through her curtains. For a moment she thought it was thunder. Then she heard it again, closer now, multiplied. Engines. Dozens of them. She rushed to the window and froze. Down the narrow street, the fog of morning carried a shimmering wall of headlights. One after another, motorcycles turned the corner, chrome flashing, exhaust growling, black leather shining wet from the rain. They lined both sides of the block like an army returning from war. Across the street, curtains flew open. A door slammed. Mrs. Fields, the nurse who lived next door, stumbled onto her porch in a bathrobe, clutching her phone. "Lord, what is this?" she whispered. "A gang." Evelyn's throat tightened. "Oh God, they found me." Maya, the little girl from upstairs whom she sometimes babysat, peeked from the stairwell. "Miss Evelyn? Why is it so loud?" "Stay inside, honey," Evelyn said softly, trying to keep her voice calm. Within minutes, the street was alive with panic. Men yelled from windows. Dogs barked. Someone shouted, "Call the police." Another voice, "Lock your doors." Engines revved once, twice, a deep coordinated growl that shook windows. Evelyn gripped the curtain tighter. Her groceries from last night still sat unopened on the counter behind her, bread now stale, milk sweating through the paper carton. She looked at the bag, then back at the street. Did I bring this here? Did my kindness become a curse? At the far end of the block, a white truck pulled in behind the bikes. The back door bore a faded logo, Lily's Legacy Foundation. Evelyn blinked. The name meant nothing to her. The riders killed their engines one by one. Silence fell, thick as fog. Then, a knock. 3 slow raps against her front door. Evelyn's knees weakened. For a moment, she thought of hiding, pretending she wasn't home. But the knocking came again, gentler this time. She opened the door a crack. A tall man stood on her porch, rain dripping from his beard. Leather vest, gray bandana, tired eyes. He held his helmet under one arm and smiled softly. "Morning, ma'am. You're Evelyn Carter?" Her voice trembled. "Yes." He nodded. "My name's Cole. Ryder Graves asked me to find you." The sound of that name hit her like cold water. He's alive?" "Alive," Cole said, a small grin breaking through. "Because of you." Evelyn blinked hard. The world blurred. "I only used your last $10, he finished quietly. "We know." Behind him, the street brimmed with riders, men and women of every color and age, boots planted, watching. Not hostile. Not grinning. Just waiting. Cole turned slightly. "She's here." From the truck's passenger side, a stretcher ramp slid down. A figure stepped out, no hospital gown, just jeans and a jacket zipped halfway, chest still bandaged. Ryder Graves. Evelyn's breath caught. He looked older than she remembered from last night, gray threaded through his beard, pain etched deep around his eyes. But when he saw her, he smiled, faint but certain. Neighbors whispered from their porches. Someone muttered, "That's him, that biker from TV." Mrs. Fields crossed herself. Ryder took slow, careful steps up the walkway, his boots leaving prints on the wet concrete. When he reached her porch, he removed his gloves and held out a small white envelope. "For you," he said. Evelyn didn't move. "What is this?" He glanced over his shoulder at the others, then back at her. "An apology. And a thank you." She hesitated before taking it. Inside were 2 items, a folded note and a photograph. The note, written in rough block letters. "You gave a stranger a chance to live. This street won't forget it." The photograph showed a little girl, bright eyes, missing front tooth, standing beside Ryder in front of a motorcycle. On the back, 3 words, Lily Graves 1999 to 2006. Evelyn's throat closed. "Your daughter?" He nodded. "Cancer. Took her before I could afford treatment. I promised her I'd spend the rest of my life helping people who still have something to fight for." He gestured to the truck. "That's what Lily's legacy is. We ride, we raise money, we fix what's broken." A murmur rippled through the neighbors. Cole stepped forward. "We know you live alone. Last night you gave up your food money. So today," he motioned to the truck. "We brought you something." The trailer door rolled up with a clatter. Inside, boxes of groceries stacked to the ceiling, a brand new refrigerator, and bags labeled Community Pantry, delivered by Lily's Legacy. Gasps spread along the block. Mrs. Fields whispered, "They're bringing food?" Children peeked from doorways. Someone said, "I thought they were criminals." Evelyn couldn't speak. Her hands shook as Cole carried the first box up her steps. Milk, fresh bread, apples just like the ones she dropped. "We're not here for trouble," Ryder said, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "We're here to show what one act of kindness can do." The silence that followed was heavier than any roar. Then an elderly man from down the street, Mr. Howard, stepped forward. "Miss Evelyn, you saved that man?" She nodded, eyes glistening. Mr. Howard looked at Ryder, then at the row of bikes. "Maybe I've been wrong about folks in leather." Laughter rippled, tentative but real. Evelyn touched the edge of the envelope again, her voice breaking. "I didn't do anything special." Ryder shook his head. "That's where you're wrong." He turned toward the gathered riders. "Brothers, sisters, show her." Engines roared to life in perfect unison, a thunderous heartbeat reverberating through the houses. Neighbors covered their ears, then slowly lowered their hands, realizing it wasn't a threat, it was applause. Evelyn's tears came freely now. The sound washed over her like a hymn, rough, raw, and alive. Cole leaned close, speaking over the rumble. "There's more, ma'am. But not here. We'll come back tomorrow if that's all right." She nodded wordlessly. As the engines quieted again, Ryder extended his hand. "You reminded us what my daughter believed, that good people still exist." Evelyn took his hand gently. "You reminded me that appearances can lie." He smiled, then stepped back. "We'll see you soon, Mrs. Carter." The riders mounted up, one by one, and rolled out in a slow procession. Children waved. Cameras clicked. And for the first time in years, Evelyn's block felt alive. When the last bike turned the corner, the silence left behind felt holy. She stood on her porch, the envelope pressed to her heart, whispering, "Thank you, Lily." Inside, the refrigerator hummed as Cole's men finished setting it up. She placed the apples on the counter and smiled, the same red shine, but new beginnings. Yet deep down, a question lingered. Why, tomorrow? What were they planning? Outside, a small boy pointed down the street. "Mama, there's still one bike." Evelyn turned. Parked beneath the flickering streetlight was a single rider who hadn't left. A young woman this time, engine idling softly, a crown and wings emblem stitched to her jacket. She lifted her helmet just enough to meet Evelyn's gaze and mouthed, "See you at noon." Then she revved once and disappeared into the fog. Evelyn's pulse quickened. Something else was coming. By midday, word had already spread across Oakwood Street. Neighbors who had spent the morning peeking through blinds were now outside sweeping porches, pretending to just be out front, but really waiting for something to happen. Phones buzzed with rumors. "Those bikers are coming back." Someone said they're bringing a film crew. "Maybe it's a protest." Evelyn Carter sat at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of lukewarm tea. The envelope from earlier lay open beside her. The photograph of the little girl, Lily, rested against the sugar jar, her smile beaming in the weak sunlight spilling through the lace curtain. For years, Evelyn had been invisible. Now the entire block knew her name. And yet, beneath the attention, a seed of fear remained. What if the crowd misunderstood again? What if kindness backfired twice? She glanced at the clock. 11:58 a.m. A distant hum rose from beyond the trees. One engine. Then another. Then too many to count. By noon, the same thunder that had shaken the morning returned. But this time, the tone was different. Measured. Steady. Almost ceremonial. Bikes rolled in 2 by 2, stopping neatly along both curbs. The air smelled of fuel and rain, but under it was something new, the faint sweetness of flowers. Because this time, every biker carried one. White lilies. Children whispered. Grown men who had locked their doors the night before now stood at fences, uncertain but curious. Ryder Graves dismounted first, slower than before, his movements stiff but sure. Beside him, Cole held a folded banner under his arm. Behind them, the young woman Evelyn had seen at dawn removed her helmet and smiled. Her hair was short, wind-tossed, and her eyes shone with quiet strength. "Mrs. Carter," she said warmly, her voice carrying across the crowd, "I'm Alyssa Graves, Ryder's sister. Lily was my niece." Evelyn stepped forward, hands trembling. "Oh, sweetheart." Alyssa crossed the lawn and hugged her, no hesitation, no pretense. The crowd exhaled, watching a scene they didn't expect, a grandmotherly woman and a biker wrapped in the same embrace. Then Ryder spoke. His voice was gravel, but his words were clear. "Yesterday we came to say thank you. Today, we came to show you what your kindness built." He nodded to Cole. The man unfurled the banner across the front of the truck. It read in bold black letters, "Lily's Legacy, Community, Oakwood Street." Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Cole continued, "We've set up chapters of Lily's legacy across the country, shelters, food drives, clinics, but we've never had a base here. Until now." He pointed at the vacant lot on the corner, a place once littered with weeds and trash. Now, fresh lumber was stacked, and blueprints fluttered against a wooden stake. The Carter House Community Center. Evelyn's knees nearly gave out. "No, that can't be." "It can," Ryder said gently. "Because last night, when you spent your last $10, you reminded me what my daughter believed. That people still care. So we're planting her dream right where you proved it true." A stunned silence hung in the air. Then a little voice broke it. Maya, from upstairs, clutching her mother's hand, whispered, "Miss Evelyn's getting her own school." Laughter and clapping followed, hesitant at first, then building until the street pulsed with applause. Evelyn pressed a hand to her chest, overwhelmed. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. Alyssa smiled. "That's why you do." Behind them, riders began unloading supplies from the trucks, boxes labeled food pantry, school materials, medical kits. Others set up long folding tables filled with groceries, shoes, and children's books. Mrs. Fields, still in her nurse scrubs, stepped closer. "You're really giving this away?" Ryder nodded. "Everything. Paid for by Lily's legacy and donations from every chapter." The crowd shifted, from suspicion to awe. Then a moment of reckoning. Mr. Benson, a retired postal worker who'd shouted at Evelyn that morning, walked forward. His voice cracked. "I'm sorry, Miss Carter. We thought you were bringing trouble." Evelyn wiped her eyes. "You weren't wrong to be scared. But sometimes fear keeps us from seeing miracles." He nodded, tears glistening. "Maybe it's time we look again." A child ran up and handed Evelyn a single lily. "They said these are Lily's favorite." She held it close, inhaling the scent. "Smells like grace," she murmured. Then Alyssa climbed onto the truck bed, raising her voice above the hum of the crowd. "Today marks the first community chapter built by a woman who gave what she couldn't afford to lose. So here's what we're offering: free tutoring for kids, medical care for seniors, job training for single parents. And we'll need volunteers." Dozens of hands shot up. "Count me in. I can cook. I've got tools." Ryder looked at Evelyn. "You still have that teacher spirit, don't you? I could use someone who knows how to guide people." She blinked. "You mean?" She grinned. "Community director. Full salary. You'd be running the place you inspired." The crowd erupted again. Someone yelled, "Speech! Speech!" Evelyn raised both hands, laughing through her tears. "I spent most of my life teaching children to share crayons and kindness. I never thought it would come back like this. If Lily can see us now, she's probably telling the angels, 'My daddy finally listened.'" The laughter that followed was bright, cleansing. Then, in the distance, the faint wail of sirens approached, 3 police cars turning onto Oakwood. The crowd stiffened. For a split second, the old fear returned. Cole stepped forward, calm. "They're with us," he said. "Escort. We invited them." The cruiser stopped. An officer stepped out, shaking hands with Ryder. "Everything good here?" "Better than good," Ryder replied. "We're just building a little hope." The officer smiled. "Carry on." When the sirens faded, Evelyn looked around. The same street that had trembled in fear that morning was now bustling with laughter, hammering, music from a portable speaker. Children chased each other through puddles. Women unpacked canned goods. And on the corner, a new sign stood tall: Future Site, Carter House Community Center. Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the sunlight finally break through the clouds. Her loneliness, her hunger, her fear, all of it seemed to dissolve into that warm afternoon air. She whispered, almost to herself, kindness doesn't come back the same way you give it. It multiplies. Alyssa heard her. That's Lily's law, she said softly. We call it the ripple rule. Evelyn smiled. Then let's make some waves. The sound of laughter echoed down the block, mingling with the rhythmic pounding of construction. Hope had found its rhythm, and it roared louder than any engine. But even as the sun dipped lower, Evelyn sensed there was something more they hadn't told her, something hidden in those blueprints, something they were saving for later. And that later was coming at sunset. By sunset, Oakwood Street no longer looked like itself. What had once been a row of weary homes now shimmered in the golden light of something new. Hope, freshly poured like wet cement on the corner lot where Carter House would soon rise. Evelyn Carter stood in her doorway, apron dusted with flour, watching the last of the volunteers pack up. Her kitchen smelled of cornbread and apples. The laughter from children spilled through open windows. The air carried the low hum of contentment, the kind of peace she hadn't felt in years. Yet amid the joy, she noticed Ryder Graves hadn't left. He stood by the truck, hands in his pockets, staring down at the new sign with a look she couldn't quite read, part pride, part sorrow. His sister Alyssa chatted with neighbors, Cole helped load supplies, but Ryder remained apart, silent, as if waiting for something. Evelyn walked toward him, cane tapping softly against the pavement. You look tired, Mr. Graves, she said kindly. He turned, smiled faintly. It's been a long day, but a good one. You brought life back to this street, she said, and maybe to me too. He looked down, eyes glinting in the dim light. I didn't come here just to thank you, Mrs. Carter. I came because I owed you something. She frowned. You don't owe me a thing. You're alive. That's enough. Ryder shook his head slowly. You saved my life with $10 you didn't have. But the real debt isn't about money. It's about meaning. You gave me back a reason to keep a promise. He motioned toward Cole, who lifted a small box from the truck and brought it over. It was wooden, hand-carved, polished smooth. Ryder placed it gently into Evelyn's hands. Open it. Inside lay an old brass key attached to a faded tag that read Room 204, Lily's Legacy. Evelyn looked up, confused. What's this? Ryder's voice softened. Our foundation's main office is in Atlanta. We're opening a new center there, twice the size of this one. I want you to run it with us. Director of Education and Outreach. Full salary, housing, benefits, the works. We'll cover everything. You'd be training teachers, building programs, mentoring kids who dropped out like I almost did. Her hand flew to her chest. Me? I'm retired, son. He smiled. Maybe from teaching in a classroom, but not from teaching the world how to care. She blinked, eyes filling. You can't be serious. I am, he said quietly, because Lily always said, find the teachers, Daddy. They fix more than people realize. For a moment, neither spoke. The street lights flickered on, catching the tears that slipped down Evelyn's cheeks. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Ryder smiled. Say yes. She laughed through her tears. Then yes. 1,000 times yes. The riders nearby cheered, their voices rolling through the block like music. Alyssa wrapped Evelyn in a hug while Cole filmed the moment for Lily's Legacy's social page. But Ryder wasn't done. He reached into his jacket and pulled out one last envelope, thinner than the first. This one isn't from me, he said. It's from someone else who wanted you to have it. Evelyn opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph, a young girl with a missing tooth and a backpack standing beside her first-grade teacher, Evelyn Carter, 20 years younger. On the back, written in a child's scrawl. Dear Mrs. Carter, thank you for teaching me to be kind. Love, Lily. Evelyn's breath caught. She traced the handwriting with trembling fingers. You were her teacher? Ryder asked softly. She nodded slowly, the memory flooding back. Little Lily Graves, quiet but curious, sitting in the front row drawing butterflies on her spelling tests. She used to bring me flowers she picked from the playground, Evelyn whispered. I never forgot her laugh. Ryder's eyes glistened. Then it all makes sense. You didn't just save my life, you were part of hers. The weight of the revelation sank in like warm sunlight through the clouds. Every thread of the story, the grocery money, the aspirin, the engines, had woven back to one simple truth. Evelyn's kindness had circled the world and found its way home. She closed her eyes, whispered a prayer of thanks, and when she opened them again, the entire block was glowing in the amber light of dusk. Children rode donated bicycles down the street, their laughter chasing away every trace of fear that had once haunted this place. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years worked side by side setting up tables for dinner. Ryder leaned close. This is what Lily dreamed of, a world where people help because it's right, not because it's easy. Evelyn smiled, voice trembling but strong. Then let's keep her dream alive. He nodded. We will. Every street, every town. Starting here. Alyssa raised her hand, calling the crowd together. One last thing before we go, she shouted. Every rider here is leaving behind something on this street. Groceries, repairs, tutoring, or time. Because we don't ride away from gratitude, we ride through it. Cheers erupted. Ryder turned to Evelyn one last time. You gave up your grocery money to feed someone's soul. Now it's our turn. He gestured toward the truck. There's enough food for every household here for the next 2 weeks. The crowd applauded again. Even Mrs. Fields, the one who had called the police that morning, was crying openly now. Evelyn could only whisper, "Thank you." Ryder smiled, eyes gentle. "No, Mrs. Carter. Thank you for proving that one small act of grace can shake the ground." As the sun slipped below the horizon, the riders revved their engines one by one. But this time, it didn't sound like thunder. It sounded like applause. Evelyn stood on her porch, hand over her heart, watching them disappear into the distance. For the first time in decades, she felt her heart beat with something bigger than survival, belonging. Inside, she placed Lily's photograph beside the one of her late husband and whispered, "Looks like I've got 2 angels watching over me now." The refrigerator hummed softly. The key in her pocket felt warm, alive. Tomorrow, she would start planning the new center in Atlanta. Tonight, she would rest in the miracle she never asked for but somehow earned. She looked out at the quiet street, once filled with fear, now glowing under the soft porch lights of unity. And with a gentle smile, she said, "Sometimes, when you give away your last $10, the universe finds a way to pay you back, with a whole community." If this story moved you, remember, kindness doesn't need a headline or a crowd. It just needs one heart willing to act when everyone else walks away. So tell me, have you ever helped someone when it cost you something? Share your story in the comments. Hit that like button if you still believe small acts can build miracles, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story that proves it. Because as Evelyn Carter learned, one simple act of goodness can echo louder than 100 engines.